G'day guys, welcome back to another lesson. We are looking at lesson 3 today, which is the creation and development of sitcoms. Again, please make sure you highlight and date the lesson that you are doing today, which is lesson 3. We're going to smash through 2 dot points today: the origins of the popular culture and how it developed from a local to global level. So again, looking in our syllabus, it is these two bad boys right here. So overarching theme we're starting now is the creation and development of the pop culture. So we're really going to look at how it came to be, how it went from a global to national to a local, to global level, as we can see here in the syllabus dot point there. And then we're going to really look at, it's almost this section here is really unpacking a lot of this in more detail, is pretty much what this whole section is about. So very important. Again, make sure you highlight and date it. Here we go. So 2 dot points here. For the first dot point, the origins of the popular culture, we have a quick word bank here. As usual, I'll get you guys to work through that. But in a nutshell, if you were to describe it to someone in 10 seconds or less, you would say that sitcoms started on the radio, and then as technology developed over time, it went to a national level on TV, and once the internet expanded and exploded, we went to streaming services. So that would be it in a nutshell there. However, obviously there are more juicy deets in there. After you've done that activity, moving on to the second part. So I've created this very aesthetic timeline for you, which is a handy reference point. So this is looking at the development of a sitcom from a local to global level in a lot more detail. So we can see here that around the 1920s and 1940s, when sitcoms first started to appear on the radio in the US in the 20s, they continued to grow over popularity over a period of 20 years. However, it really stayed at a very micro meso level. Again, I think it was limited by technology and technology's capabilities to get it to a global level at that point in time. But it started to become really popular. The UK also started picking up in that time. But what then happened, or how it looked on the radio, was it was similar to how a sitcom ran today, except you just didn't have the visual component. So you would have almost like a cast of people in a radio studio with microphones, and they're just talking through what their characters are doing. It's a very descriptive sort of environment. You just did not have that visual to back it up. So it would have been similar in terms of about everyday life, punchlines and cheap sort of gag laughs, but you just didn't have the visual accompaniment until television was invented in the late 50s, and that really saw a transition from sitcoms to be able to go to a macro level. Adding that visual element made it really popular, and the US and UK particularly started to pump out a lot of really popular sitcoms during those 2 decades. This, towards the end of the 70s, is when, along with the television, it started to become a globalized popular culture. So sitcoms really blew up around then and continued to do so into the 80s and 90s, where we have what we call the golden era. So there's been no period of time since then which has produced, so those 2 decades, the 80s and 90s, so 1980 to 2000, they've produced the most successful sitcoms of all time. So they're the big classics that you see, like Friends, Seinfeld, Simpsons, Everybody Loves Raymond, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, all of those really popular ones that are still making a mint today, is when sitcoms were, I guess, at the height of their popular culture prowess, you could say. We're now moving forward into, so it started to become global. It was a bit micro meso here. It started to become macro and global in television, and then in the 90s, 80s, it just exploded and it became globally accepted everywhere around the world. Fast forward to 2000s and to sort of the present day, what we have seen is that the number of sitcoms continues to increase. You used to only really have the classic ones that were sort of shown on TV, but now because of technology and Netflix, consumer access is a lot more widespread. Consumer choice is a lot bigger as well. And so what you'll see is a lot of different styles of sitcoms happening today. You can see how they've kind of developed as well. They're not necessarily, I think Big Bang Theory was kind of the last one to do it, of that. You're on set, you have a laughing track kind of gag thing. Now most sitcoms don't have a laughing track. They're very much a single camera focus, and they zoom in and out. So think of things like, or that mockumentary style, like you got Modern Family, The Office does it, Parks and Recs is very similar to that. The Good Place is very similar to that now as well. New Girl, things like that. So there's not necessarily that laughing track that accompanies it now. Schitt's Creek is another one that's quite new. And so you can see that sitcoms as well at this time are sort of branching out from a lot of their traditional themes of friends, family, and the workplace as well. So if you guys have seen the Good Place, that's a sitcom, but it's based on the afterlife, and it's just a little bit different. Whereas you look at any of these really popular ones here, Friends, that's based around friends living in the city. So Seinfeld, Simpsons is based around the family. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air around the family. Everybody Loves Raymond about the family. Frasier is very much based around a workplace culture. So is The Office. So you can see those are the sort of key traditional elements. It's only really now that that's starting to expand and change a little bit. So that is how sitcoms, in a nutshell, moved from a local to global level, and also how they started. Thanks for tuning in.